Okay. In five, three. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you just after Thanksgiving in snowy Minnesota and snowy Chicago. Yes, and it is cold, but we're so blessed to be in places that are heated. Let us think of people who don't have heat, who don't have running water in America, everybody, let alone around the world. There are so many of us, many who you don't even know. Many people don't have enough food. We served more than 300 people, maybe about 400 or so people at Rainbow Push at the headquarters on Thanksgiving. Many of them had something to eat. They just wanted to be with us, but many, if not most, did not. And we thought of that. And so, even with our father's health struggles, and he's on the other side of that mountain, everybody. He's doing quite well. Thank God for that. He said, no, no, continue. The work must continue. Feed these people, and you all have a great time. And we did. And again, I want to thank uh, the people of China. The Chinese ambassador to the United States flew in from Washington today to be with Reverend and to extend his greetings and his appreciation for his work, for fighting for freedom, for fighting for a better world, for fighting for a just world, a peaceful world, for the work that he has done all over the world. And the inspiration, he said that some of the youngest people, Colleen Rowley, said, when we saw him, it gave us hope. It made me feel like I belonged on the world stage. That meant so much to him. And so finally, when the ambassador was going to leave, my father held his hand and wouldn't let it go because my father's got that Vulcan grip. But I want to thank all of you for your prayers because they have really availeth much. And he is on the mend, everybody. Now he wants his shoes, and he said, "Get me out of here. I want to go home." So we will be home pretty soon. So thank you so much. And a special shout out to Carol Saskin, my sister from another mister. She is coming into her holy season. Happy Hanukkah in advance, my sister Carol. It was her birthday yesterday. I love you, my sister. Sending you so much love. And let's get right to it with my big sister from another Mr. Colleen Rowley. I'm always so happy to see her. And I have to tell you, of course, you're a favorite with the crowd here. Everybody loves you. They're like, look, we just want to sit back. I just sit back and wait a minute. No shame in my game. I have my notes. So I can take my notes with everything that she says. Yes, I do listen to the shows afterwards. But it means so much because she's a woman of such tremendous principle, of course. She's been one of Time Magazine's Persons of the Year because this woman of principle saw something in our government that was wrong. One of the greatest disasters to visit our country in our history on our shores. She said this didn't have to happen, and put her whole career on the line to call out um, the FBI on what they did not do. And so we want to thank her for her service to our country, and she continues to fight for peace. She continues to fight for justice. She's on the front lines, and we thank God for her today. And so I had to call her when I found out, as we were going into the holiday, that these two National Guards persons had been shot. My heart broke. I said, because really, with the feelings that so many in America have about having the National Guard on our streets, and with many in the National Guard, not the majority, but certainly more than a few are voicing their opposition to being deployed to our streets. There's a lot going on. And so when I thought of these two persons, one of whom was killed, wow. And then I said, well, who did this? They said it was someone from Afghanistan. I said, Afghanistan? If he's in the United States, that means that he was working with our country when we were there. And it turns out he was working with a CIA group. So you help me to understand what we're looking at, Colleen Rowley, because some people are calling this imperial blowback, which is something that you have warned us about for a very, very, very long time. You said, wait a minute, you sound like Dr. King. He said, be careful, the bombs you drop overseas can explode at home. And you have been saying this for decades, Colleen Rowley. Welcome home to the show. Help me to understand.
Yeah. When I wrote the second memo to FBI Director Mueller, after he testified in line with the lies of Bush and Cheney in order to, get a war of aggression on Iraq and regime change in Iraq. So you're talking February of 2003. And up till then, some of the officials were on the fence. But about then, Colin Powell went into the United Nations and held up the fake vial, completely faked evidence that there was weapons of mass destruction. Well, so did FBI Director Mueller. And they were making this connection between terrorism and Iraq being responsible, or implying that Iraq was responsible for 9/11. Okay, so completely false diagnosis that Iraq had anything to do with 9/11, which was Al Qaeda, which was an enemy of Iraq and Saddam, completely. So you guess what? We're seeing this all over again. So back in February of 2003, when you see all the officials lying about the pretext to launch war on Iraq, I wrote a memo, and I really included a lot of points about how this will turn out to be counterproductive. And by the way, all these years later, not a single person, even in the FBI, or all these people that castigated me, how can you be against war? We have war fever. You can't go against this. It doesn't matter if they're lying. You have to be for it. I mean, this is what was said in February 2003. All these years later, I've never had anyone find me again from my old days and say, well, you turned out to be right on everything you said. One of the things I included in the memo was that terrorism would increase. And I said, at some point, FBI Director Mueller, you will not even be able to handle this. It'll be so great. Now, it's 20 some years later, but in the last several years, the numbers of mass shootings and other kinds of mass killing through bombing of cars, it's not just guns, gun violence, even stabbings. People are using all kinds of different weapons. You can use a truck and plow into a crowd. I mean, they're all very similar and related. It's not like, I noticed the news wants to separate the mass killings. They want to make them all unique, so that you say that someone gets stabbed, the poor girl that got stabbed, I want to say on the metro, whatever, and they make that like it's unique. It's a different thing. No. And then they'll always say in these news coverage, what was the motive? What was the motive? Police are searching for the motive. Now, you'll hear that a couple of times, and then guess what? You will never hear a logical motive like you would hear in a murder mystery, like you're trying to do it for the insurance money. No, the motives are simply that people are mad and they are desensitized to the use of lethal force, violence. And this latest case is a perfect example of there are wannabe people in the United States that are seeing this reverence for war, for warriors, and they want to be part of it. They want to be part of that war club. And so when someone cuts them off in traffic, and if they have a gun handy, they shoot the person. It's called, we compartmentalize that as road rage. But you know what? This never happened before. It never happened until the last several years, when people are enamored of feeling like you can kill people if you get mad. Okay, mm-hmm. So the last case of this Afghan, who turns out not just to be a translator working with American forces in Afghanistan, but actually working on a CIA kill squad. And these were these very dirty assassination tactics. I think they said his brother, by the way, highly recommend the Democracy Now! Segments today, which really gave a lot of additional facts, by the way, which we will not hear. We're not probably going to hear this on our mainstream corporate news, that his brother was one of the main heads of this CIA kill squad.
Well, wait, all the question that we continue to hear corporate media ask is, where was he radicalized?
Unbelievable. Yeah. No, he obviously wasn't radicalized is also, in a way, it's a euphemistic term, because this is really, it doesn't even approach being radicalized. You know, you're talking, if you think about people who switch completely, let's say I was a capitalist, I was an ardent capitalist, and somehow I got kidnapped by a group of communists, and they radicalized me to turn 180 degrees from capitalism to communism. Okay, that's what I think of as radicalization, a form of, complete brainwashing that takes some time. No, I think what we have now is much more simply put, it's a desensitization to the use of murder. And again, it's not just the gun violence. And this case of this Afghan case is really what, the 1,000th or maybe more than 1,000 cases that we've just had. There's at least one a day, and I've even read it's more like 2 a day of mass killing. And again, one of the features of this is senselessness. A person going into a mall and shooting people, or into a church. Oh, what's his motive? Is it racism? Those are not motives. It's because people are desensitized. They see that Trump now, the latest example, and before Trump, we had Biden. They see him saying, if I say the little boat that can't even go 50 miles outside of, can't possibly reach the United States, and I say that boat is narco-terrorism, I can murder everyone on that boat. Okay, now that example, it's leadership, I don't know if this is the best way, but leadership by example. So we want to think of leadership by example as being a good thing. So if the leader is virtuous and ethical, we would hope that trickles down then to everybody. If a teacher is really sets a great example, then the students will be better in that classroom. That's leadership by example. Yet, unfortunately, it also works the opposite way. If you have really someone who is displaying immoral, illegal activity from the top down, many of the people in that whole group will by osmosis pick it up. Cheating in a classroom is another example. Okay, so there's good kids. There's a whole range of kids in a classroom. If cheating becomes normalized and the teacher either looks the other way or maybe even condones it, you're the only person in the class. Maybe you don't even need to cheat. But you know what? You have pressure on you to conform with the rest of the people. And that's what we are in the United States now. We have this wannabe warrior ethic. Pete Hegseth changed the name of the Department of Defense, which was a euphemism, but he changed it to the more honest Department of War. He fired the legal counsels in the office that would tell him if it's a war crime. And he said, take the gloves off. The only reason we've ever lost a war is we haven't done what Israel is doing now, which is, he didn't say the word genocide because he's smarter to know he can't use that word. But he's doing the same thing. He just posted a cartoon that shows the same thing, trying to appeal that you can kill little kids. Okay. And so that's basically following Israel's example, completely unlawful genocide and all of these war crimes, the double taps where somebody survives, but then Pete Hegseth says, kill everybody and they go back in. The My Lai massacre. lining up women and children and saying, kill everybody. Nick Turse has written articles in Vietnam, kill everything that moves. Okay, completely illegal. And as Spence Ackerman said this morning on Democracy Now!, he is completely right. This is the most dangerous moment in history. And it's not just dangerous if you happen to be on a boat in Venezuela, or now maybe in Venezuela if Trump decides to do carpet bombing in Venezuela, which many people think he's on the verge of doing. So it's not just the bad things happening to them. This comes back on us, because once we are desensitized to this, this is where we do have Vance Bolter in Minnesota shooting and killing Minnesota state senators, and for no reason. No, we've never heard the motive. It makes no sense at all. It's not just mental illness either. Somebody on Amy Goodman's Democracy Now!, who was, by the way, seemingly kind of pro-war. She kind of does a fair and balanced. So she had this guy on who was part of the war machine, and he doesn't want to say that we desensitize people during war to believe that war is a good thing, that it serves a holy purpose of bringing love and peace and human rights and a war to end all war. Trump is saying this over and over again. We're only fighting war to bring peace. That's what he's saying, the World War I. And, if people believe that there's a great noble goal, a virtuous goal, as many Americans fall into this, and they believe that you can have a noble goal. Well, this guy said that it's a problem of mental illness. And mental illness plays a role, because we have a problem with all kinds of different forms of mental illness as whatever, but this never happened in the past. This never happened in the past before, where we had an epidemic of mass killing. And yes, people become desensitized and they're mad about something, but that's not a motive. If you get cut off in traffic, if you get a low grade on a test, if you get mad at your employer, if you are hateful of your old school, you thought they bullied you, none of these are motives for murder. What they are is that we are desensitized to violence. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, violence begets violence. We're in, I think Spence Ackerman said this on Democracy Now!, we are in a culture of death. We're approaching this culture of death now, because we cannot stop. Our country seems to be thinking that it's what's the word? We think that we're threatened to lose the hegemonic power in the world by Russia and China. So we're going all out on the use of military might. Might makes right, the law of the jungle. And it's gone from the Mideast now. It's still in the Mideast, but it's now migrated back to South America. And Trump is threatening to take out Venezuela and probably some other countries in South America too, if they let this happen. As long as there's no accountability, and again, I'm just echoing what Spence Ackerman said, as long as there is no accountability for any kind of crime, and this could just be plain vanilla murder. If tomorrow someone said, we're not going to prosecute murder anymore in the United States, that's too harsh, we're not going to do that anymore. Guess what would happen? You would have more and more people engaging in something, because there's no, we have behavior is a carrot and stick. It's controlled by carrot and stick. We try to reward good behavior through carrot, and we try to punish bad behavior through stick. If you remove that, and a country now is seen as all out, and murder is its weapon, and even the threatening of nuclear war, as by the way, Israel's doing. Israel's threatening by some reports the use of nuclear war in the Mideast. And if you do that, guess what? You're going to get. Ackerman is right. We're going to get more. We're going to see more of it. And when it hits you, when it hits people in the United States through all these mass murders, our news media is trying to deflect. And again, with all of this coverage, they never get to the root problem. Trump, he said the shooting by the Afghan who was on the CIA kill squad. And yes, he's mad about something, but that's not the motive. Trump is saying, oh, the problem is immigration from the third world. And all of the third world people immigrating here are bad. And as soon as we push them all out, we'll be safe. You know, if this is like if I went in to a doctor with heart disease and blockage, and he says, "Oh, you know what? We're gonna give you surgery and take out your lung." This is the same Trump's answer of stopping immigration or pushing people out. He's going to push out certainly the wife and the 5 kids of the Afghan shooter that was here, for starters. But this is broader than that. This is like a doctor removing your lung when you have heart disease or anything. It's by the way, similar to the Iraq War. Iraq War started claiming that it was the answer to 9/11. And in fact, it was the opposite of the answer. So what I'm amazed by is that so many people in the United States are still falling for it. That's what I can't believe. I saw an article that said Harvard Harrison poll showed 70% of the people polled were in favor of bombing these 80 or 100 some people on these little boats in Venezuela territorial waters. And I think some of them were Colombians. I mean, it was a mixture. But 70% are in favor of it. And obviously, they don't know. They're believing what Trump is saying, that these are dangerous narco terrorists heading to the United States to poison your children. There's no evidence or proof of that. Just as when they claimed that Saddam was behind 9/11, there was no evidence. They were making up lies. Shalaby, they were making up lies. And I'm amazed that people can still not understand. I mean, when there's no evidence, I could understand if there was some controverting evidence in there, but there's nothing. There's not a shred of evidence that any of the boats that have been bombed off of Venezuela had drugs on them. Okay, if there's evidence, let's have it. Let's see it in court. Stop one of these boats, get the evidence, and bring it up here and prosecute.
But let me ask you this. Why is it that we are so inclined to believe that we need to be aggressive toward these little places? We would never think about invading whatever our disagreements are with France or with Macron or with, my goodness, with anybody. We wouldn't think of going into Europe. Now, mind you, of course, race and racism, that's part of it. But there's a perception of their power also, and I think we overestimate the power of some people and underestimate the power of others, Colleen. Because I'm trying to figure out how it is that we think we could do what we did in Afghanistan. I think we did damage, a lot of it. And that even the people who worked for us over there, that to see them come over here, you can't think that somebody does not harbor some resentment. Something.
Yeah, I mean,
am I wrong?
Killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions. I've read a figure of over 5 million people since the so-called war on terrorism began. Over 5 million people worldwide. And I think that was actually a year ago or 2 years ago. So I think it's even higher. And yes, when things affect you directly, that's when the news media tries to make up these false pretexts and lies, it doesn't work so well because people have seen it firsthand up close. If you saw the My Lai massacre, you would have a hard time believing some of the pretexts and lies that were said in that first initial part, because you saw it yourself and it affected you. And so increasingly, the worldwide opinion of the United States, yes, we're not well liked in the world. If you're a tourist now, I know a lot of people who are, in their golden years, they're trying to go to Europe and travel, and a lot of people try to make up that they're Canadian, or they don't even want to carry indicia of being Americans because they're kind of afraid that they could be, targeted by somebody, or at the very least, their cab driver or something might try to, oh, you're American, I don't like you, whatever. Anyways, I think that that's a minor form of blowback on American tourists. The major form is here in the United States, and the economy, all of these things are because we have been put on a war footing for 25 years with no end. And when you asked why do they pick on countries that have less military power? Well, you know what? Why do people climb the mountain? When you say, why did you try to climb the Mount Kilimanjaro and, what's the other one? The one in Nepal or whatever. They say, why would you do that? And they'll say, because it's there. Why would we start a bombing of Libya? Because we could. They'd had no way to shoot down the planes that were dropping bombs. And, I think Venezuela is in a pretty similar situation. They are trying to claim that they can shoot back with some missiles and stuff. But I think our military believes that it has superiority. The problem comes as in Vietnam, as in Afghanistan, as in Iraq, that the people of the country are not in favor of the regime change. So you can't just go in, topple a government, put your quote unquote Ahmed Shalabi, as they wanted to in Iraq, or in Venezuela, put Guaido or Machado, and then think you have handled it. Now we have a country, we can gain access to the oil reserves. It's all for, economic benefit, as, even old Smedley Butler said, I was in the banana war and all this. It is there are economic, geopolitical power reasons for trying to bomb these countries and try to put in puppet governments that will allow the United States to do what it wants in their country against their own people. And in fact, we can put sweatshops in those foreign third world countries. That's great. We did this after the Soviet Union collapsed. We did it in Russia. They kind of resented that now. And in hindsight, they resent Gorbachev because he allowed these years where the oligarchs working with the United States were able to kind of loot the country. Here, they're standing in lines for toilet paper. And in Yeltsin, we put a drunk, Clinton actually contrived to elect Yeltsin the last time, and he's a complete alcoholic. And why? Because it was for us. But when you actually get to starting a military operation, we don't probably want to do the nuclear powers. We're very careful of trying to keep away from nuclear going to war. So Venezuela doesn't have nuclear bombs, and then it serves a lot of purposes because Trump does not want to be seen as a weak president. He's being criticized for trying to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia. He's being criticized by Europe. He's being by the neocons here in the United States as, oh, you're weak. You're giving in. You're conceding to Russia. Okay, so look at this. I can bomb, me and Pete Hegseth can bomb Venezuela. Now, again, I'm really disappointed that Americans who fall so easily into war fever can't understand this. And even the people, even liberals, many times that fall into not understanding the dynamic of this geopolitical power thing. And it goes all the way back to Brzezinski and the chessboard. And we try to get the most of the world under our control. We can't probably get Russia and China for right now. We're still trying, but these people have plans in Washington, and it doesn't matter the party. They've been doing this forever. I think, though, right now, when the sign of the times being so dangerous that they changed the Department of Defense to the Department of War, you would think.
Why is that an indicator that this is such a dangerous time? Why?
Because it's honesty. It's, when you're trying to do things, euphemisms. Okay, war propaganda works much better using euphemisms. Okay. And I know our corporate media, you look at the euphemistic things about, the father is home from the military, and all the football games, they're sponsored by the military. There's a break in the action and the news nearly every night. And a little child in first grade looks up and they have it all on tape, and he starts to cry because he hasn't seen his father or mother in months. Okay, that's a very euphemistic, but it's the message. There is a deeper message behind this, and the deeper message is war is really good. It helps these little children. It helps everybody. We all feel in our heart that it's a really good thing. Now, and that's again, more effective propaganda. It's the more effective evil because it works better. When you have to go into this Pete Hegseth mode where you're basically beating your chest and saying, kill everybody, and being more honest about it. And, again, his whole thing was that he doesn't believe in euphemisms. He thinks Obama and Biden, when they tried to say that we were fighting in Afghanistan for women's rights, Obama had that plan when the Afghanistan war kind of went sour, and somebody in the CIA and whatever, they said, okay, why don't we do this? France really cares about women's rights, and France is getting cold feet. So let's show the women in burqas and get them on where they had one woman with a disfigured face.
Colleen, stop. It sounds so crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm not laughing. This is so absurd. This just sounds nuts.
If people think that we're exceptional and that we're only killing these millions of people worldwide for good causes, we're trying to bring human rights and women's rights and peace and love and democracy. That was the latest one. The rule of the rule-based order. We're only trying to do good things. Oh yeah, sometimes it backfires. Sometimes there's a My Lai massacre. Sometimes whatever. But we're only well-intentioned and good at heart. We're trying to stop. We're trying to stop the drug poisoning of our children. Okay, so if you understand, these are propaganda euphemisms that work really well. If you have to go, as Pete Hegseth did, to the point where I don't like that, talking about women's rights and whatever. I want to just say, we are powerful. We're America. We don't worry about law. He actually, like I said, he fired the lawyers that would tell him what a war crime was, that you can't kill civilians. No, we can do this. Pete Hegseth, before he became Secretary of War, he was working on pardoning the Callies. I don't remember all their names, but they committed massacres. There were several of these war criminals in Afghanistan. He worked and got, I think, the majority of the people he worked on pardoned. And so he doesn't believe in law. He does not believe in law. And he certainly is not well-intentioned. Even though he's from Minnesota, he's from Forest Lake. And at one point, he probably, heaven knows what has created him. But he's not, he should be impeached right now for this latest thing of basically saying kill survivors floating in the water. And even though they only know of the first two, there was apparently a leak somewhere where they know of the order on the first two. I'm here to say this has been happening in all of those bombings. Maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but I think once he gave the first order saying kill everyone, that when they bombed the boat, if someone was on the edge or something and didn't get killed right off the bat, the military now has understood Pete Hegseth wants us to kill everyone. My guess is that there's been more than one of these double taps killing civilians. And the reason is he doesn't have to say it every time. He had to say it the first time. And that's something I don't think our news would even ask. If you're one of these war reporters that are groomed now to be pro-war and praising warriors, and I see it every night, you're not going to ask Hegseth or Trump, how many other times has this happened? And basically he would lie about it, but they're not even going to ask. But I'm guessing it's probably the tip of the iceberg. And again, it happened in Vietnam. It's happened with the drone bombing. They were killing lots of civilians. There's been a lot of, if you want to rationalize or excuse Hegseth, yes, he's just following a whole long line of war crimes. But at some point, this has to end. A line has to be drawn, because if you cannot draw a line now at this bright line where there's evidence and everything else of these solid war crimes, and even senators, 6 senators went out who were military and or CIA and said, you know what, you can't follow illegal orders. Now, you can, if there's no accountability, if the United States thinks it can control all of the international courts, and they're trying desperately to control the international court through bribery and threats against the judges, they've done everything in the world to poor Francesca Albanese in terms of keeping her. She's a UN rapporteur on Israel's genocide, and she's been sanctioned. They've frozen her bank accounts. She cannot come into the United States to visit her own daughter. I mean, this kind of thing sends a chilling effect when they do it on one person to all of your international judicial authorities. And they're all intimidated and probably right now. The United States thinks what Pete Hegseth thinks, okay, if we control all of the international judicial authorities, don't worry about it. I give the order, you follow it. And I think it was, I think the only thing with the six senators and Congress people, the only thing is they should have been prepared to give examples of the illegal, the killings, rather than saying, well, we don't want to go into that. They were scared to say, but you know, the boats themselves, those are illegal. It's no due process, and they're just bombing people. Think about how law enforcement in the United States, many law enforcement officers have now, because of cameras, and they shot too quickly, people that were unarmed, and they've been held responsible. How does that play with them when they see the military? I say it's narco-terrorism, so I can kill them with no evidence at all. This will trickle down again back to our own law enforcement. If this is not stopped, it's going to have an impact and trickle back. It's all migrating home. I've been writing about this. I warned Mueller in February 2003. And every time there's been a serious mass killing, most recently with the Bolter one in Minnesota, I said, oh, look here we go again. Here's another one. And they're all in the same, again, it doesn't matter if it's a truck or a car ramming into people. It doesn't matter what kind it is, or a bomb placed in a building. You know, at the same time as I wrote that warning letter to Mueller, I was giving some talks on ethics. And I told crowds, I said, Well, you know what? The last time we had serious terrorism in the United States with Timothy McVeigh, the bombing of the Oklahoma Federal Building, John Mohammed, the DC sniper who shot and killed, I think, 17 people. The other one was a guy who shot his professors, probably got a bad grade. No, he's a nurse. He was a nurse someplace in a hospital out in Phoenix. We had 3 in a row. Or 3 not in a row, they weren't all simultaneous, but they were all former military, and they were desensitized that killing is my answer. When I get mad, when I get wronged, I feel wronged, I can kill the other person. And that's what Trump is setting that example from on high right now. And it'll get far worse if it isn't stopped.
It will get far worse if it is not stopped. What can stop this? Can we stop this? Because you do rightly point out that some people do believe that we have the right to bomb these fishing boats. We don't know who's on these fishing boats. We do know they're human beings there. And we do know that the fentanyl we say that they have, they don't produce in Venezuela. What is happening?
Yeah. No, there's, the places, you get it. It's very reminiscent of claiming that Saddam was behind 9/11 and whatever, and connected to Al Qaeda. He had no connections. There was no evidence at all for that. And, some of these things, I'm pointing over here because that's where the TV is. And when war correspondents and anchors on the news do not do what Cronkite did in 1968 and tell the truth about the Vietnam War, finally tell the truth. If they continue to do this, yes, most people are going to follow. That's the social psychology experiments. A lot of people believe Trump, for starters. Some people don't believe him, but then I'll say, here's the good news. We got to listen to the people who have more facts on their side. It is a good thing that these 6 Congress people have spoken out about war crimes. And
why is that a good thing? Why is that a good thing?
Because
specifically these people.
Yeah, it's educating. That's 70% of American populace who do think it's justified to bomb a boat off of Venezuela. They are thinking this for a reason. They have nothing countering this in their heads. They're getting one direction only. And I think that if we have more people countering the disinformation, again, if there had been more at the time Iraq broke out, there was, like they said, 2 or 3 articles on the front page in the months before. Colin Powell, of course, he made front page. One guy at the Washington Post, Pincus, he might be dead by now, but there was Walter this guy Pincus. Yeah, well, and he was writing, oh no, the aluminum tubes are not designed, whatever. But he was on page 14 or 19. Every once in a while, he made the back pages of the Washington Post. Knight Ridder, which was a small newspaper. But that's it. They were countering it. But that was it. The main corporate news every Sunday blasting out at you, the holding up the vial. I got a chance to talk to 60 Minute. What's his name? He's the main anchor right now on 60 Minutes. He's got that silvery hair.
Yes.
I forget his name.
I don't remember his name. Yes.
Yeah. He actually admitted to me, this is before the Iraq, a week and a half before the Iraq war started. And he told me, he said, if you went back to December, this is in early March of 2003. And I was sitting in my kitchen with this guy. And I can't remember his name. And he said, well, Colleen, if you went back to December, the media, we were not convinced. He said it was about 50-50 then. He said, as soon as that push came out led by Colin Powell in the UN, he said, there wasn't a one of us. We were told it was going to happen. We were told at the end of January that there was going to be, bombing of Iraq. And we were also told that we were going to be embedded. And, he didn't tell me this part, by the way. That part about being embedded, I read it separately. But they were also told Victoria Clark, who was working for Rumsfeld, leaked it to all the top news that they were this time, good war, we're going to allow you to be embedded. You're going to get these front pages, war coverage. It's going to be wonderful. And he said, and then the 60-minute guy told me, and not a one of us were willing to oppose any of this at that point. And that was admitted to me. So again, and there were like maybe one or two front page stories on major newspapers, with the facts. By the way, with the facts. And Scott Ritter was one. I think he was speaking out, but that was it. And that's where we got to do a better job. We've got to get these facts out. There are alternate media now, and actually even on the conservative side, the Tucker Carlson and I'm trying to think who else is good on this. Well, there's a group of conservatives, realists like Mearsheimer. They're excellent. And Colonel Doug McGregor, there's a bunch of them, and they're all very good. And of course, on the other side, people that are with the left, and they're all saying the same thing. Here we go again. 25 years. Trump promised.
Green.
Yes, Trump promised. He promised us he would end the wars. He promised, when he was campaigning, why were we up there on stage with him? We were telling the people that he was going to be a peace president. And now look at him. He's got Pete Hegseth claiming that all bets are off. We don't have to follow the law anymore. We can do what we want. And if we want to deflect from other things, let's go and bomb Venezuela. Let's have regime change, take out that leader. And the majority of experts, you can't hardly get them to speak out, but a lot of them think, oh my gosh, here we go again. Here's just another one. The people of Venezuela do not necessarily want the United States to come in and take over their oil resources. And a lot of them support Maduro still. Why don't we let them have their own referendum or their own vote? Let them have, if we want democracy, this makes no sense to say that we have to use military force to put in a Guaido. By the way, the other example besides Venezuela looks like Honduras. Honduras, and it's such a striking contrast with the fact is Trump is claiming the boats are narco terrorists. Then the same day, he pardons a convicted for the rest of his life former head of Honduras who was convicted with tons of evidence as being a leader narco terrorist. Why? He wants to have a regime change in Honduras back to where we can control that country. So he wants to affect the elections there. And I'm assuming, I don't know what the point would be. It makes no sense. And again, comes back on the American people. Hey, people, I know it's hard because our mainstream news isn't telling you exactly these things, but think for yourself and read more. Read all across the lines of everybody who's talking here and look at facts, not what geopolitical strategies are. Geopolitical strategies are backfiring. They are backfiring big time, and they're going to backfire even more unless people, we have to follow law. Law exists for a reason. It's not because it's a nice thing. It exists because if the law gets erased, anarchy results and everybody is hurt, including ourselves. And that's why we have to have some very basic minimal standards, not to murder. Murder is murder, genocide, and wars of aggression. These are basic use cogents of things that, even if you didn't have Moses going up the mountain to get, thou shalt not murder, even if you didn't have that, it's known in everybody's head. We cannot allow murder, wanton murder like this. because now you're going to be the victim. What you're saying is, if I can do it, then I can also become the victim of it. You got to have some minimum standards of legal standards. And right now they're erasing the last vestige of legal standards in the for the United States to conquer and try to prevail.
In the last couple of minutes that we have here, I'd like for you to help us to chart a way forward, because I was struck by, and I have been struck by your assertion that the bombs that we drop overseas are exploding at home. And now we've got millions of Venezuelans here. Many of them are here. Most are here. It's not because they wanted to come to the United States. They were run out of home. These sanctions have made life unbearable for them. And help me to understand, you have a lot of people who could be in the United States who could be very resentful. And if they're not resentful, they're children, right? So help me to understand, what is the path forward? Because I certainly don't want to, I don't mean to say that we need to look at Venezuelans who are the enemies inside. We've got to do some house cleaning, and we have to really check ourselves, Colleen Rowley. You've been saying that for a long time.
Yeah, I think educating the larger population, contacting, again, there's some evidence now that I just saw flashed right when we were talking. Leon Panetta, former secretary. He wasn't great, by the way. Leon Panetta was quite a warmonger. However, he never called himself the Secretary of War. And even he, again, this could be a tipping point. He even said illegal, striking boats without any evidence and claiming that's illegal. So when this is happening, and more people have to be themselves speaking out about it, they have to be calling all of their elected leaders. Next time there is a vote, I think when they had the vote, they already had one vote to try to restrain Trump and Hegseth from doing this. And Fetterman, wasn't it Fetterman, Democrat? And he sided with, we have to, we get to bomb. I mean, he's terrible. Those people in Pennsylvania are critical because they had the one critical vote. Well, and why did they vote in Fetterman? They should never have done this in the first place. They knew a little bit about where he stood on things. He was an awful choice in the first place. More people have to be not just meekly putting their head down and saying, there's nothing I can do about this. They should be calling for impeachment of Hegseth, definitely. And any military officer who is following the orders, illegal orders, has to be held accountable. And those six people, that needs to double. Instead of saying going after the 6 people, that needs to double and triple and get more congresspersons. People like our Democrat senator in Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar, who, by the way, has voted nearly always for war. She's voted for Israel's genocide, but she has to now see the writing on the wall. And she could see the writing on the wall if more of her supporters tell her, okay, Amy, it's time. You stand up with Mark Kelly and Amy Slotkin and all the rest, Emily Slot, whatever their name are, and stand up with them and tell military people they cannot be committing war crimes. You have a credibility. You are a prosecutor. You prosecuted people for murder. Amy Klobuchar was a Hennepin County prosecutor, and she prosecuted people for murder. She could stand up and say, no, without evidence, without due process, without some kind of court. What we should do, what we did with the Honduras leader, bring it. If we are so concerned that Honduras is funneling drugs into the United States, bring him here, put him on trial, and show the evidence. And that's what they did for the Honduras. And then no president, Trump should not be allowed to pardon somebody like that. Because why? Because he wants regime change in Honduras. Unbelievable. Trump supporters, most and critically, Trump supporters. I don't know if you have a lot of Trump supporters listening to the show, but I think they're a critical component. And this is exactly why I think that supporting Tucker Carlson and others, he's not the only one in Trump's base who are trying to say wrong, wrong, wrong. And all it's doing is hurting the United States. And if you want to be America first, if you voted for America first, you do not want these wars to be migrating and this terrorism to be migrating here. And that's that. If I was a doctor, again, going back to taking out, you got heart disease, but the doctor says, well, let's take out your lung, or let's take out your kidney. You got heart disease. I'm going to take out your kidney. Come on, get wise, people. This is a wrong diagnosis of the problems. And the problems are from 25 years of perpetual war. A lot of our problems are debt, our economic insecurity, that the fact that every couple of months we're going to be up to 38 trillion debt. This is all because of war. And, people have to get wiser about it. And then they have to put that pressure on their elected leaders who are bribed by the military industrial complex, by the Israel lobby, and they are. So it takes a lot of pressure to get them to see the light. But I think that's what we need to do right now. More pressure, call for impeachment. Start by calling for impeachment of Pete Hegseth. And, Minnesotans have a good role to play that because he's a Minnesotan. And, there were a lot of strikes against him because of his personal life, his alcoholism, his womanizing, all these things that he got fired from pro-war veterans groups. Somebody who's actually fired from a pro-war veterans group because of his personal problems. And then we made him Secretary of Defense. And then he changed it to Secretary of War. Unbelievable. It's frankly unbelievable we're in this situation right now. But a lot of it is because people are worried about the price of eggs and they don't make the connection. And this connection of their own personal problems right now and economic challenges is because of 25 years of perpetual war.
Well, Colleen Rowley has said it, everybody. And think about it, $38 trillion of debt, unsustainable. That's 38 million, just so that you get a sense of what $1 trillion is. That's $1 million. Our children's children can't pay that off. No. Think about that. And we don't have to be here. And we're the only ones who can turn this ship of state around. Led by, of course, people like Colleen Rowley, this brave patriot. Yeah, that's right. I called her a patriot because that is what she is. And we have to claim the mantle of patriotism. And we have to be transpartisan. Do not get caught up in a party. It's not about a party. It's about the people. It's about the country. Let us bring the country together. Well, if someone is fighting war on the right and somebody's on the left, in the middle, on the outside, you know what? I'm with you. We have common cause. Let's work together and have a peaceful society and a just world. We can do it, everybody. Colleen Rowley, I'm sending you so much love. Robert Williams, you said everybody just loves you. I just love you. Love you. And so, everybody, believe it or not, I got a third hour of the Santita Jackson Show coming up. And guess what? We're going to talk about this Tennessee race. Because Americans are not looking at parties, everybody. They're looking at people who could make some change. So let's think about that. And come on over to the next hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And follow Bernadette and like and share. Love you, Effie Rolfe. Love you.